Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of Contact Lost. And today we have a little shuffling in the host position, as you can probably hear. First episode presented to you by myself, solo. I hope I will live to the high expectations. And today I have two guests straight from the rainy England, meaning Majson
Hello.
and Pumba.
Hello, everybody.
So, guys, you are straight from, not straight, because it took us a week to organize. You are back from ITT in England. So, maybe a first question of the day. Tell me how was the first tournament after our big January changes? So, did anything surprise you? How was the event in overall, without going into details for now? To which one of you wants to pick it up?
I can do that.
Maybe.
I think. Yeah. So the tournament overall was great for us. I think the new meta, the fact that we could perform as a team, was really enjoyable, and the whole experience was great. We came across some really good teams as well, which was a very nice change of pace. Change of pace maybe is not the right word, but we came across good opponents, which also gave us good practice. So and all of the opponents that we faced were absolutely amazing. So in general, I think it was an awesome experience for us.
Yeah, and I can agree with that. And this was actually the first full tournament that we played on UKTC terrain, on UKTC standard. So something new, something fresh, something very 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 fresh for us to play on. Also challenging. So for me as a player, it was very interesting.
Okay, and speaking about your first tournament on ITC terrain, UKTC terrain, any thoughts about that? Because that's never-ending discussion.
Yeah, so I personally I like those tables because for singles this is a very good thing to have a single standard for terrains, and I like these tables. For teams, like we played on this, there was just one minor flaw I would like to say. It's that all of the 5 tables were the same. As I mentioned in the previous episode here, this is kind of a different team tournament because we are only pairing against armies and not choosing the tables, because they are basically all the same. The only difference is if you play on the edge of the alley, so you have easier table to play, or you have to move around. That's the only difference, basically. But on the from the gameplay perspective, they are all the same. But as a standard, as a UKTC standard, I like those terrains. They provide some new challenges for us. Are they better than WTC? I wouldn't compare them one-to-one because they are built for different purpose. And from my opinion, they are both fine, and both standards are fun to play on.
Yeah. For me, I would say that definitely UKTC boards are on the lighter side than most of the WTC tables we've came across, but generally, I'd say that the experience of practicing on completely different rule set as well as boards gave us some nice perspective into the 40k as it is right now and to the meta, and also gave us a chance to try ourselves in a different scenario that we are very used to by now because we've been playing on the same WTC boards for more than a year now. So this was a change of pace, which generally is a good thing to come across from time to time.
And yeah, that is true. And also speaking that you mentioned what I wanted to ask in a second, is you were talking that they were lighter tables compared to WTC. We'll get to the detailed list in a moment, but did knowing that you're playing not on WTC but on UKTC tables affected you as a team composition and list building? Because I suspect by looking at your list, there was some affection to that, or am I wrong?
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I think we started off our team camp when we decided that we are going to the event and started building our team camp from grounds up by considering even bringing up to 4 gun lines on those tables, but we slowly transitioned off of that after practicing on them. So I wouldn't say that's the optimal choice, but generally there were some choices made to make sure our lists are capable of dealing with stuff on that particular terrain and performing well on it. I'd say which ones of our lists would be the best, like the most impacted on that specific board set. I would lean towards my list actually. For anybody that doesn't know, I brought a Ravenwing, like almost pure Ravenwing list, consisting of 18 Black Knights and a lot of speeders. And that list is very specific to the boards. I think it is incredibly hard to play that particular list on the WTC rule set overall. And on those boards, it would be way worse. So it was tailor made for that specific rule set and this specific tournament.
Okay, so you mentioned the list, so maybe guys, as the next question, go to your list. But you also mentioned that your list was tailored towards this terrain. What about your Astra Militarum list as a team? Because that was a dead giveaway for me, at least. Majson, maybe you? And
yes,
also talk about your Jinstu cult also, if you're on the topic.
Okay, so starting with our Astra Militarum list, it was actually one of our first approaches here. So just the pure gunline like approach, 7 Lemon Russes and Kasserkin support. It ended up to be suboptimal. Also on these tables, because on these tables also you can actually hide in your deployment zone. So it's not so easy for guard list to just kill the opponent. They can still play for the points. They can engage, for example, Lemon Russes who are in the middle, taking objectives. So I wouldn't. I would say that there is a better build in Astra Militarum, but we just needed this tournament to get some experience with that army, because previously we have not played Astra Militarum that many times in an international environment. So basically, this was too flat, too oriented into one plan, and if plan to kill the opponent didn't work, then basically this list don't have any fallback solution.
Yeah, I think it basically turned out for us that the guard codex generally turns out to be way deeper than we initially expected, is I think our opinion right now. And there are many avenues in which you can guide your list towards, whereas the list that we brought to ITT was kind of flat, as Majson previously said, and kind of followed like the main thing that just jumps at you when you first read the codex. But after some practice and so now the tournament, I think we have fallen out of love with the particular list.
Okay, and what about the rest of the list? So let's go to to another list that was not mentioned. That was mentioned but not detailed. So G-Stock Colts.
Okay, so my list is I kind of just stole this list from the internet and then made some my own upgrades to fit to my playstyle with that. So basically, this is as a core. This list plays as 30 bikes and 80 neophytes, so 4 squads of 20. And as after the updates in Arcs of Omen, this list gained a lot. First of all, small changes like no longer I have to pay a tax for additional patrol to fit all the troops necessary. I get now free weapons basically everywhere. And this added, and finally, there's no longer armor of contempt in the game. So while previously GSC struggled with their most efficient squads and weapons, they struggled with a low AP, and armor of contempt was a direct counter to that. Also, for armies like Harleys and Mass for Invul were a thing then. So this was an army that got a lot of problems in the metagame. And right now, these are all gone. So you can play GSC, you can actually kill something with the very efficient weapons, with some tricks, and it's very hard to play against because you need to screen basically everything on the table. And for example, one of my upgrades to this list was to change additional AP in close combat for additional 1 inch of consolidation and piloting, so Alien Fury, which gave me a lot of additional movement opportunities on the table. Because I don't rely on to kill anything in combat, basically, but I need to do my move blocks with my army. So this is the first thing, and the second thing that and that worked was adding a warlord trait on Primus, focus of adoration, which enables units to do heroic interventions while they are within the aura range of Primus. So this additional two layers of complexity here allowed me to fit additional tricks in this list. So, and regarding how UKTC tables affected playing this list, I think it didn't, because I usually don't care about which map I'm playing on. There are a couple of matchups I need to have a table, but dense table. But in general, I don't care about the deployment because I deployed my army in ambush under ambush tokens.
You care not to start the game.
Yeah, I also I don't want to start the game usually. Sometimes I liked it, but because usually if I go first, then the opponents tends to be also too aggressive on their first turn, and my second turn is devastating. Or they tend also that sometimes they are too defensive, and then I just block the table. So it's very hard to develop a really optimal plan to counter GSC right now. It is doable because this army got its problems, but you need to understand all the tricks that GSC can deliver to actually fight them.
Okay, that was deep analysis. So let's go to the other 3 lists you brought to your team. So the third one that we have are Victor's Harlequins. So I don't think there is anything new on the list, or correct me if I missed anything, or it's just standard boat spam.
Yeah, there's some the new thing is that they no longer have 4-ups involved, so
Yeah,
and it
that's it.
changes a lot.
Yeah, well,
Changes a lot.
we'll get to how it played in a minute, but in the list itself,
Yeah.
I don't think there is nothing new.
I mean, it
Uh,
benefited a lot from changes made to the Harlequins in terms of buffs as well. The DJ that just the Digester, sorry, that just replaces is able to replace one of the dice during the attack roll sequence or even the save roll, is back in the list, which also increases the sniping potential of the list significantly. And I believe Victor also brought the Mirror Architect back, which works wonders against a shooting meta on lighter boards with the Light Say Death ability that
Yeah, it
basically makes boats count as Trust Hitman if they are above a certain range in Elmora.
okay,
yeah,
so actually, I did miss something.
yeah, there's a couple of new tricks over there, and Mirror Architect is quite crucial here because basically this gives additional place, also gives additional place on the table when you can hide models, especially against the low range, short range shooting from armies, for example, like GSC. But this is still hard matchup for Harleys. But Mirror Architects helps somehow.
Okay, so the next two that we have are Gita's Necrons, and I also see it's pretty standard to what we are used right now. So Tomb Blades, Scarabs, Destroyers. But there is one thing that shines to me like a star: the knife scythe. Tell me about it, because I'm really curious, and I think I'm not the only one curious about its purpose. And I see a lot of people are playing knife scythe on currently.
Yeah, so the Necron list was designed specifically by Guido, who's a master Necron player at this point and has been designing this for a couple of years at least with the codex. And now he has come with, especially now that the meta has shifted towards gun lines, I think he has found a pretty nice way to fight into them and have a good matchup into a lot of those types of lists that emerged over the last couple of months. And the Night Sight is a great tool against that. The trick here is, even though the flyers are now required to start the game in reserves, that doesn't affect the Night Sight as much as you would actually initially think it does, because of a certain stratagem that it has. It's called Prismatic Dimensional Breach, and it enables you, after you come out of the reinforcements, in the reinforcement step of your movement phase. So after the Night Sight appears on the board from strategic reserves 9 inches from your opponent, as it does, you can actually use it to have one of your units that is in strategic reserves deep strike within 3 inches of that knife sight, and it has no limit of like 9. The unit itself, the knife sight does, but the unit itself doesn't have to come out more than 9 inches from the opponent, which results in the unit arriving in this way to having a potential 6-inch charge, for example, to reach your opponent after the charge phase. It is a tool that is difficult to counter, especially it's a pretty neat trick about against any gun line, and combined with the Necron's ability to have OPSEC on every unit, it can be used to tie up crucial targets or threaten the opponent's side of the board aggressively. It's a very versatile tool and something you wouldn't normally see from Necrons most of the time, and I think it's worked wonders for him.
Actually, it was quite possible to do it before, but it costed CP to put the guys in the reserve, the Night Sight in the reserve, and for the gem itself. So I guess right now it's just viable and cost efficient, right?
I think Guido actually has been playing a very similar idea for at least a couple of like before Arcs of Moment has dropped. I believe he played it last year at the Polish Team Championships, Correct me if I'm wrong, Majson, but I think he did.
Yeah.
So the idea was already there, but now it just got better and it especially fit the meta.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that's interesting. And the final list, Pumba, it's your one. So tell me, because I'm really curious, why no Terminators? Why no Boogeyman that everyone is scared of and yelling about right now? Why just almost pure Ravenwing?
Yeah, so the decision here was made that I think bringing Terminators was something that's definitely viable and pretty good, if not optimal, even. But after reviewing those boards and having discussions, I think we decided that instead of having an all-comers list that Dark Angels can provide us, we can very much use a list that can score us big points on those boards, and that is just enabled by the fact that the incredible movement speed of Ravenwing and its survivability as well in the shooting phase can just catch your opponents off guard and score you easy wins in certain situations if you can get the right matchup. So you would call that type of list a hitter list, perhaps? Something that is just meant to be kind of protected in the pairings, but if it gets a good matchup in this way, it can also just straight up win the games on the spot. And it absolutely did that a couple of times. What's also interesting, I feel like, is the fact that it also throws a wrench in opponents' plans and it's into their pairing process, because pairing against that list was, I feel like, pretty difficult. It had good alpha strike options and was pretty survivable even not going first. So you needed to be very careful to not let us basically catch you off guard into any pairings that was very favorable for it.
So purely a team decision, and I guess from what you're saying, on singles you would bring any Terminators, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the part of the matter of fact is also that I kind of didn't want to bring, like, for example, 40 Terminators lists to the tournament. It was just a matter of my own enjoyment from the tournament, and I think this list is way more interactive. It has a lot of nice things you can
definitely.
do. Exactly. So it was just nicer for me to play with, and it just was more enjoyable for me, and I really did want to enjoy this tournament as much as possible. If I can tell you right now, if that was WTC, I would probably still bring like 45 Terminators and just go for it as hard as possible. But I also think that this list that I brought was tailor-made for the tables, and it did pretty good. So I'm not regretting bringing it, and I did enjoy my time though.
I will tell you a secret. Pumba also cannot roll 4-up invuls. He's just not good at it, and so he needed something with 4-up invul, but actually something that can kill the opponent before he rolls his saves.
Before he needs to roll those symbols.
Yeah.
That's a strategy, viable one.
Yeah, but because if Pumba comes to a tournament with 4-up invul army, I probably I see how it would end.
Yeah, I mean the army still relied a lot of rolling some saves because it basically had a 4+ invulnerable in shooting army wide all of the time because of the Azrael, which was a nice addition as well. But yeah, it definitely had a lot of damage output as well, pretty reliably because of all the buffs that I can give out from my units, from my support characters. So it had a lot of bite as well. So if the survivability aspect didn't work out for me, I could still fall back on just dealing massive damage to my opponents.
This sounds like a plan. Okay, guys. Remaining in the topic of list before we go to your ladder itself, was there any particular interesting list that you spotted, or maybe something shine out to you? Any thoughts about that, Majson? Maybe let's start with you.
From what we played, I really liked the approach for the Singe Demons list, because I think that in Poland we have quite underestimated that approach, and it turned out that this mono Singe demon build can also, it's not flat to play as flat to play only into a gun race. This army can play probably also other armies. For example, as an example build is the Alex Harrison build from Team England. So this is my first thought about the list, which surprised me. Maybe not surprised, but it turned out to be actually better than expected. Also, we played the Bulgarian team. I played versus their guard, and their guard list was really good. And it was not a lemurous spam, but Bulgarian player included 2 command squads there with Oberyn support. So basically, they were a nightmare to remove. And these 2 command squads just won the game for him when I was playing him. So this is actually something that opens my mind to different approaches in the guard.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
generally we kind of that list especially, but other guards lists that we came across, for example, David Guella's list, showed us that there are many more interesting maybe avenues to build guard than just the flat gun line with Lemon Russes, that actually are good or even maybe more viable than this one. There's the depth of the codex definitely kind of had us off guard, and we didn't expect this much like play out of it, or maybe this much whatchamacallit, finesse in this building required.
Yeah, because like we wrote in our article recently, the guard is considered like a point and click army. So you just point your guns, shoot, and hope for the best, right? That's the current consensus, I think, for now.
I think it's not that easy to play guard, actually.
Yeah. That's
If you understand, as an opponent, if you understand what's the strength of the guard, you can play to counter it, especially if the list is flat, and so you can still score points. And I know that the guard is considered as a simple point click fire, kill the opponent, that don't score, and so on. But it's more complex than that.
Okay, guys. So let's sum up with the list. Maybe let's go with your results itself and the ladder you had to climb. First of all, congrats on reaching pretty semifinals round, because it was a dropout event, right? So the lost team was not playing anymore, as I understand from the ladder that I studied. Am I right?
That's not really the structure of the event. It wasn't like a elimination tournament or anything like that. Everybody played 5 rounds of the event. We did as well, and our 5th round was against Team England. And just as a spoiler, we unfortunately did lose that round, and because there were still 2 undefeated teams, they just played an additional round of finals, so that there was no dropout. Just 2 best teams, 2 undefeated teams played in the finals, which we didn't unfortunately achieve to do.
Okay, so yeah. So hence my error, because from the PCB it looked like it was a dropout event. So sorry about that. So guys, maybe let's tell me about a couple of words about each of the matchups, the hard things, the easy things. Whoever wants to pick it up.
Yeah, so the first game we've played against a team from England called the Warwickshire Gamers. Warwickshire, what the fuck ever you call that. Every time it's pronounced differently in British, so I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, guys. But yeah, those were players that had very interesting ideas in their list, especially in a couple of them. They have very unusual Emperor's Children list. They had Renegade Knights bringing just, I believe, 13 War Dogs with no Big Knight, which is the correct choice, by the way, which was actually
No, it's not.
It is absolutely the correct choice.
No, it's not.
And anybody that says different is just flat out wrong, and I will not argue further with that. But this was a pain to actually pain for us to pair against. We weren't expecting a lot of teams to bring knights, or at least not this variation of them. And they also had a Harlequins list and a Tau list, as well as Astra Militarum. But this Astra Militarum player that I actually ended up playing against didn't bring any Kasserkin, which definitely weakened the overall strength of the list, and it could be felt during our game. Yeah, so this pairing for us, it went pretty good. The pairing process didn't surprise us with anything huge. I played against the guard, taking a nice 20. As I've said, the lack of Kasserkin, I believe, hurt this guard list a lot, and their damage output, because to be honest, this is probably still the best unit in the codex by a wide margin. So without it, the guards struggled a little bit to deal appropriate damage to the 4-up invuln everything in my list, whereas I could easily chew through that. We had a Harlequin Mirror that was won by Victor. What were you, Majson, playing against? Because I legitimately
Emperor's Children, the CSM,
Yep.
some Noise Marines and Possessed Brick.
How did it end? Because
it was 20-0 basically.
Yeah.
I got really good profiles against Marines, standard Marines, and they just didn't kill me well. So matchup was very in favor of me. So
yeah. The round, I believe.
Sorry to interrupt, and I see your last pairing was Tau versus Gita.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Gita approaching me, and he's like, "All right, I think I'm scoring a 17 comfortably. Would you like me to push for a 20, or is 17 enough?" And I'm like, "What the hell do you mean, bro? Just grab the 17 points and be done with it, right? Don't push if you don't need to risk any points." And he of course he didn't push and still scored a 20. So There we go. That's classic. So yeah, that round went pretty good for us because of the 320s that we managed to score, as well as the rest of the team holding well. And I think the round finished overall 85-15 for us.
I already opened the round too, so sorry, no confirmation from here.
Yeah, so I think that was the score. Good opponents, good overall experience. Nice way to start the tournament with a big win, and get our preps on, because let's be honest, we still haven't done a lot of playing in person on these boards. So a little bit of practice before some more difficult matchups was a nice welcome.
Yeah, in round two, speaking about more difficult matchups, I see you taking down some pretty big names in the community.
Yeah, so our second round was actually against Dice Down, which are a great team from England, supporting some of the best players in the country, including Vic Vijay and David Gallillard, as well as Boris Michev, who is a great lad who I've actually known for more than a year now, but I think he stepped out of the game for some time, but now came back for this event specifically, as well as Jim, who I played against, who is also a member of that team, and Brian Sape. Sorry, Brian, if I mispronounced your last name, but he's a member of Team Scotland. So that's a very difficult opponent for a second round, but I'm really glad we came against them in the second round of the event, because I think the mission helped us in this particular case, and that was favorable for us for this reason.
And a little side note, I see, Majson, you played against the newest addition to our merry bunch, namely the World Leaders. Any couple of cents about that?
In my pairing table, I notified Pumba and guys that I haven't played this matchup before, and I will not have the opportunity to test it before. But I felt that I got a really strong list into such just a close combat oriented army with no shooting. I noted this as a small win. I managed to start the game here, and completely, basically, I used my Ginsters and bikes to block the opponent in Boris' army in his deployment zone. And on the mission 1-3, so Data Scry, it was devastating because he couldn't score primary points through the game, and that was really a big problem for him. So I didn't need to actually kill that much stuff, but I managed to kill a lot. Overall, it was actually very interesting to see how world leaders work on the table. Because it's just it was a new army, and I needed to have some kind of experience with that. And so Boris was is a really good player. He knew how his army plays. But basically, if I started the game, he got just no play to no resources to move outside the deployment zone. So this made the entire game for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a pretty interesting insight about that. So, round 3, guys.
Round three was against Mitch's team, actually, right?
Get FAQ'd.
Get FAQ'd, yeah. So this is Mitch's Beard's team, or a bunch of guys that actually are regular goers to the to the UKTC events, which most of them I've known personally from attending those events and judging them in person. So that was a really nice experience to actually be able to play against them. The team had a pretty unusual team composition, I believe, with a lot of stuff that we usually wouldn't expect in a 5-man team. So they had Iron Hands for sure that I played against. Mitch from Team Iceland brought his Valor's Heart sisters with Dirty Sacrosands. There was Grey Knights list actually in the mix. What am I missing, Majson?
Harlequins.
Oh yeah, the Harlequins, and the last one was
GSC.
Oh yeah, and the GSC. All right, yeah. So that was a very unusual pack. It included no guards. It didn't have like Dark Angels, instead opting for Iron Hands. Basically, a mix of armies that they were very proficient with. So they relied on their experience with the armies instead of just their raw strength. And it really like took us for a spin with those armies. I think that was our closest game besides the last one that we've played. That finished. I drew against Iron Hands actually, which we surprisingly had a difficult time pairing against. But it just turned out that a lot of I've relied on my 4+ invuln in this matchup to carry me through it. And when it's just some things in that matchup are, especially on the mission that we've played, because we've played them on, I believe, the densest table that UKTC boards offer on mission 32 or 22, whichever that is, but it's the quarters deployment. And the couple of things like the character Contemptor Dreadnought just choose through anything in this game, and it's very difficult to actually get a hold onto him to be able to just remove him from the board in any meaningful way, which kind of swings the matchup. but yeah, that was a great game actually. I've immensely enjoyed that, and it was very like skill intensive, which was a nice change of pace for me. What did you play against, Majson?
I played against Harlequins here, so
Oh yeah, that was the matchup that we were really like sniping for,
yeah.
because we really believed that in the pairings process, because we really believed that Harlequins currently have just no play against GSC, and I think it turned out to be true.
Yeah, there was a couple of Harlequins player that fought differently, and I played this a couple of times before the event even, and every time it ends like more or less the same. So GSC just pushes the opponent out of the board, and the only thing that actually makes Harleys to fight for like 1 or 2 points maybe is the mirror architect guy. But it's still not enough to stand against the bikes rush. Harlequins just have no and just don't have mean to get rid of the bikes efficiently. And if they overcommit something in the middle, they just die turn to with against neophytes deep strike, and this is it. And neophytes right now got a really good profiles against boats, against troops, against basically everything. Previously, before the Arcs of Omen changes, when Harleys got 4-up invul, they could uh, at least try to fight and could score a draw. Now, when it's 5-up, there's they just are shot off the table, and there's no play in this matchup for Harleys.
You mentioned before that the nerf affected Hurricanes, and now you're saying that they are dying turn two. A couple of months ago, that was pretty unheard of for the Harlequins to be dying turn two. So you think that was such a big? You guys think that it was such a big thing that the invul was nerfed? Because from my experience from the Dice Crusher, I also played against Harleys, and it changes a lot. So what's your more professional opinion?
So my first impression after the nerf was like, okay, Harley's got some nice tools back in the game. 5-up invul should be manageable. You can still play on the table, play for the mission, and deny scoring of the opponent. That was my first thought about that. But after testing the Harleys, it turned out that this nerf is got Harleys right now got the problem with against aggressive armies. Previously, you can just win on by statistics. If the opponent overcommits, you just push, shoot what you can, and then survive with a couple of with majority part of the army. And now it's there's no way to actually play into aggressive against aggressive armies like GSC. So that's my opinion about that. It changed through the last 2 months. I was at first, I was like I said, I was convinced that Harleys are still very good army, and now I think they are not optimal choice in the team comp right now. For fives, even for eight-man team, they're just not delivering the scores that are needed to in the current metagame.
Yeah, I think this tournament like made us realize that the nerf actually took the edge of Harlequins. They just don't answer the armies that they used to anymore, which is the biggest thing in teams environment. You kind of need to look at your team comp as a toolkit, as a way to answer different armies and like tool against the meta. And right now, Harlequins seem to not have like a decent place where they fit into that way of thinking about your team composition, where it is difficult to pair them in the sense that they might come against a really difficult matchup, but their numbers of the matchups that they used to crush or they were very favorable in actually shrank to the point where that you wouldn't be able to catch those certain certain matchups in the pairings process.
Especially that's true on WTC tables when Harleys used to be be used as attacker to gun lanes. Right now you can't do it. Just can't do it because on the open table they're just killed in 1-2 turn. It doesn't work anymore.
Okay, and speaking of that, round 4. Let's back to our summary. And let's start with Victor, who delivered 90 points against Inari and your Bulgarian opponents. So, couple of words, and let's go to the final round for you guys then.
Yeah, so the Bulgarian team were actually great, by the way. We've had a bunch of cool games against them, and I also think some of their lists were, as we've mentioned, I think the guard list especially was super interesting with the 2 command squads, like just pushing the board and being supported with the bodyguards Orgrin. And this one, I think that the strategy of me being the hitter list paid out dividends because I was able to get paired against the Chaos Knights, which I've previously mentioned were a little bit of a pain to deal with our team camp, but I knew I just had a good chance of blowing them off the board. And this is exactly what I did after I've managed to get that pairing. So that was a great score for us to get on the board before any other results. Majson, you've played against that guard in this specific matchup. Yup. So that was the one where we, I think, realized that the depth of the gathered codex is more than we initially thought.
Yes, exactly. It is very hard game. Basically, Bulgarian team got a really good team composition. They have had counters to our armies, and it was a nightmare to pair against them. And also because we didn't knew them before, we didn't expect them to be that good, to be honest. And but after seeing the release and in the evening on Saturday evening, I told guys that I'm scared of them. I'm just scared. I think that they will be very good players and just be prepared for everything here. And it's basically it was true. My opponent played a very good game, especially if he didn't play against GSC before. So it was a very good achievement to actually win against GSC when playing this matchup for the first time. And his list was also a direct counter to me, and he made a plan that actually worked on the table on the mission. It was it was very hard for me to answer the pressure from the guard in this matchup.
Yeah, you're talking that you were scared of them, and yet you delivered pretty substantial wins, 45 against 65 for you guys. So congrats on that. And so we are reaching the final game that, spoiler alert, you unfortunately lost against Team England with some pretty big names in the roster also.
Yeah, so Team England, we knew are our greatest opponents coming into the tournament, and they have just assembled a complete fucking murder squad, to be honest, with no players that are weaker on any front. So basically, five dudes that are absolutely there to win. And we knew that this is the basically the finals of the tournament, kind of, and whoever wins that round will probably also take the final game. So the round 6 that was coming up. We faced them on a mission 12, which was the bombs. So diagonal deployment. which I think is still fortunate for us because I think their team comp that, spoiler alert, didn't include guard as well, was very much prepared and favorable against us coming into the finals on the mission 23, which is the Hammer and Anvil deployment. So they had Dark Angels with 30 Terminators, 3 Vengeances, 3 Speeder Tornadoes, and just a packet of support characters, which is just like, I think, the optimal just take it and play list right now, and probably you are going to do well. It's very clear cut and it's very potent right now. They were playing the Custodes list that was initially designed by Liam Hackett for the Adelaide tournament, which he managed to win with there. And I think it translated pretty well into this event as well. They had a brutal Votan Alpha Strikey shooting list with absolutely no combat, just 18 bikes and 3 land fortresses. So blow your opponents off the board kind of stuff. They had Necrons, which were legitimately surprisingly similar to ours. I thought our Necrons list, especially Ghetto's ideas, tend to be out there and tend to be pretty unique, considering like the overall meta of the Necrons list that you usually see. But the English brought a very similar list in like a concept. They also had the Nicite, for example. They even had the Anarchist the Traveler, which is a very nice tech choice.
Great minds think alike.
I clearly, I mean, I think it also like proves that I think we were one of the few teams, us and them, that actually decided to bring Necrons onto the 5-man squad, which speaks volumes, I think, to like the comprehension of the meta itself, kind of from both teams. What was the last list? I'm just blanking out right now.
Chaos Demons.
Yes, that's Singe Demons. That's Alex Harrison piloted. Yep.
Yeah.
So their team comp just didn't include guard in it, which we were very surprised initially that they didn't decided against bringing that particular faction because of their raw strength on those tables and in the meta in general. But turned out it was the correct choice, so they managed to beat us. I played a lovely game against Josh Roberts, who's a long-time WTC ETC player, who's one of the captains of Team England. He was piloting the Liam Hackett's like variant that he modified a little bit, which was just 20 Wardens, 23 in his exact list, that just decided not to die against my list. I think we both talked after the game that it was kind of a favorable matchup for me still, that I had definitely had the tools to deal with that list in just plain damage output. But I mean, as long as you cannot fail a save with like Custodes units and the 4-ups is strong enough, they will push into you and they will score hard. And this is exactly what happened. So I just bounced off instead of dealing maximum damage. I had a couple of turns where the damage just decided not to go through all of the defensive stratagems that were presented and through the invents. And it turned out Custodes can push hard into me. And I just was scraping off points, just trying to roam around them instead of going full ham, which isn't an ideal spot for my list to be in, definitely. But generally, the game was incredibly tight. I am very like personally gratified with the level of play that I have experienced against Josh. That was such a nice game. Like everything by intent, like pre-measured stuff before even moving them, declaring the charge distance. That kind of just what that's your opponent and you are like on the same level, and that what each other's army do, and you're kind of like in this headspace. I don't know if I'm translating this properly into English, that you kind of understand each other and your intent even without super specifically declaring it, right? Like I'm gonna position 21.1 inches, right? And there's never gonna be an argument like about what's your charges or something like that, which was like really super great. And so I lost that game 11-9 for Josh. He decided to just roll through the middle of the board and score big into me, which we didn't expect. I thought I was going to win that matchup. As I've said previously, I think I had the tools to deal with it, but just didn't work out for me.
Okay, so guys, you ended up finally on the 6th spot, right? If I'm
Yes,
reading the PCB properly.
that is correct. Because of the fact that we lost in the very final round and playing against Team England, which meant that we dropped off at the very last second to get into the 4-1 bracket and didn't play the last game in the finals. That meant that other teams that have played the 4-1 bracket and ended up with the same overall result, like big win-loss result, and played comparatively against weaker opponents, managed to score bigger in the department of like secondary points, right? Game points and such. And because of that, we placed 6th overall.
Well, you're sounding like you're justifying only 6, and I was about to say that congrats on the hell lot of results. Out of 62 international teams, you scored 6, so that's pretty big. So again, congratulations to both of you and the rest of the team for that.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think we kind of wanted more. I think it was obvious for us that we were trying to win this tournament, and we definitely had a chance in doing so. But congratulations to Team England for like proving us wrong and beating us on their own terrain, not letting us get the trophy through like right from underneath their nose.
We'll just beat them next time, for sure.
For sure.
Exactly.
Rooting for you all next year then. Okay, guys. So since I think we pretty much exhausted the topic, I would like to thank you very much for joining me this evening, this lovely evening. Thank you for your deep analysis of the lists, the meta, the description of your games. So with me today was Pumba.
Thank you very much for inviting us, and see you guys.
And also Majson.
Thanks, and see you next time.
So my name is Vitalis. Thank you guys for joining us this evening, and till the next time. Bye.
Bye.